And oftentimes, as we've also rightly so spoken about, that men do not speak. Men do not talk.
Machita must stop thinking, "Akwenzeki because I can't talk to anyone." Test. Look at the people around you. Can I test this relationship?
I found myself like trying to fit in with wrong people, thinking that whatever that I was going through mentally will just vanish.
Is indeed a pandemic. In actual fact, is an enemy that is invisible, that needs to be conquered. But you cannot conquer what you cannot see.
You speak up. I told you something, now I'm hearing it from these people. What's up?
As a young boy or as a young man, you don't have to cry. Those are some of the things that we need to unlearn, because crying, it's part of healing as well.
Gents, Bafouet, mental health is the new pandemic that we are facing. It's a global one.
Yeah.
But more specifically in South Africa, it is said that 1 in 3 people are experiencing mental health issues. 27% of our population, it is said that they are going through depression. And if we look at last year alone, 2024, 73% of the youth had to be treated for mental-related issues. It is really a serious matter. And to top it all, when you look at South Africa, it is said that we are ranked number 69 out of 71 countries for people who are affected the most insofar as mental well-being is concerned. So it is really a pandemic, really a big challenge.
Yeah.
What is your take on this subject of mental health and the impact that it has on society?
Yeah, no. You just said 3. 1 in 3.
Yeah.
Sure. 1 in 3 is most likely to be depressed. So I'm thinking about us here, we are 3. But topic for another day. When I put in Tlantla, I think what you've just said, like it's quite saddening. And for me, I feel like it's a critical issue that needs to be tackled, especially in our communities. Because when you look at mental health, it's affecting quite a number of factors in our society. It's affecting the ability for our people to function. It's affecting productivity levels at work itself. And most importantly, the relationships. People are unable to build the relationships simply because they have these mental issues that we need to tackle. And I think it's a matter of importance and it requires serious attention because if it's not attended as in now, 5 years or 2 years down the line, it might be worse than what we think it is at the moment, especially when it comes to men. Because most as men, we are not well educated when it comes to mental health. And I feel like that's where this thing needs to be prioritized. Not to say that our female counterpart, we don't include them. It's always easy on their side because they talk. Women talk more than men. So in this month of awareness, I think we need to go out there and tell our people that we need to talk about these things. So summarizing what I've just said, it's very important that we take it as a matter of importance. And we need to find a way to go and spread the gospel of mental health in our different societies.
That's quite a lot of statement. And you said quite a lot of things. You spoke about men, you spoke about women, you spoke about productivity at work and stuff. And I would be keen to explore that further. But before we go there, Mvuzo, what's your take on this subject of mental health and the impact that it has on our society?
Sure, man. I think from just listening to Lebo and listening to you in the introduction, it's kind of like a silent serial killer, this mental health. It's one of those that you don't really notice. It's hidden somewhere. Your book says it's the invisible enemy. And I really agree with that. It's something that is unspoken of. It's something that we don't really learn about, especially in our Black communities. We don't really address issues of mental health because we assume everyone's okay. You mentioned men, Lebo, and I'm just thinking, we have sayings like a man doesn't cry.
Sure.
We have sayings like, you deal with it, just carry it. And how can you carry it if you don't know what you're carrying? You know, how do you address something that you don't know how to speak about?
Yeah.
Because it's so invisible, and the sad thing is that it doesn't choose which age it attacks. Mental health. Mental health issues can attack a 2-year-old all the way up to a 100-year-old. And that's for me is a concern, because how do you say you're attacking or you're dealing with something that you don't really understand? And I think that's where my heart is at regarding mental health. It's one of those invisible, unseen, quiet serial killers that is destroying our communities, and we really, really, really need to attack it and deal with it at its core in order to deal with some of these issues that you are mentioning, especially amongst us as men. You know, just like you mentioned, with its Mental Health Awareness Month for men, it's something that I would like to hear us as men speak and delve deeper into. So that's what I think.
Thank you. Well, you've spoken, I think, Lebo, you also touched on it, that men do not speak a lot and women do tend to have a lot of conversations. There is a lot of stigma around this subject. There's almost a shame associated with mental health. And I believe that is one of the reasons why people don't really talk so much about it. People suffer in silence. People die as a result. What should we be done in order to really tackle this and remove the stigma that is attached to mental health?
Let's make it a norm, like to talk as men. You know, I feel like the more we talk as men, the more we can tackle a lot of issues. I'll just make an example with our Men of Hope, a structure at church, which encourages men to talk. So you don't have to have a bigger outlet where you are able to say whatever that is a burden when it comes to mental health issues. If you can just find like few men that you entrust, that you can talk to, I think that's when we can try to get it right. Because the issues of mental health, they requires one to have the people that they trust, where you are able to converse about these issues, because it's something that is mostly internalized. So something that is mostly internalized, it means you are having the conversations with yourself. And as you're having these conversations with yourself, it affects you psychologically. So for you to be able to heal from that space, you need an outlet, as Uputin Nhlanhla would always say, where you are able to offload. You can offload to your loved ones. You can offload to your friends. There's also helplines in these days where you are able to actually talk about these things. So the culture of men must talk, men must cry. It should actually be something that we unstigmatize in our communities.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's so good, but so good. And I just want to add to that, you know, like I mentioned earlier, mental health doesn't just attack you as a young man or an old man or as a child. It attacks across the board, you know. So I think having campaigns that deal with mental health or address the mental health stigma, to say that you are not alone. You know, that's one of the things that we learned yesterday in one of our events as Life Igniters. You know, you're never alone. You've got someone who knows about what you're going through. You know, when I was reading Nhlanhla's book, I realized that most people don't understand that they have support systems. People don't understand that they have someone that can talk about this thing. And I'm so glad we are addressing it now, because in schools, for instance, most kids don't realize that they are affected mentally by their surroundings, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whatever that they are going through. That's a mental health issue. And, you know, some of us, we grew up in townships where we see violent crimes, we see all sorts of things happening around us. And the stigma is, I can't talk to anyone about it. Because if I'm a snitch, then, you know, I'll end up in stitches. You know, but unfortunately, the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter to us as men that we are going through issues because we don't talk about those issues. It doesn't matter to us as men that I'm dying internally because I've never really understood that I am dying.
Yeah.
I've always thought that it's okay for me to feel this way because that's how men are supposed to feel. I'm supposed to fight this feeling. And I think if we do better campaigns, go into, like I was saying, go into schools. With HIV, we spoke about earlier on. It was spoken about. We had TV campaigns that had adverts about what HIV is and continues to be. The same with mental health awareness. We need to be able to tell our kids that when you are feeling sad because of this, and this, you've got mental health issues. And you need to be able to address it by speaking to health professionals. Yeah. We should have in our schools health professionals that deal with such issues to unstigmatize it at school, at that level, at their level. Then we take it to our organizations and we have people who will come in. I'm not saying we need psychologists at every workplace, but someone that people can go to, a clinical person that they can discuss with, because the more we keep quiet about these things, the more it continues to be a stigma and it continues to serial kill a lot of people. So I would say, make it as public as possible. Put it on all the billboards. How's your mental health? Do you know what mental health is? Do you understand why you are feeling the way you are feeling? Adverts that will come in and say, we don't necessarily need more alcohol. We just need to address the issues that cause us to drink. And I think personally, that is what is going to help us as men, especially because Tina, everything that we do, we try and numb it. So if we don't take drugs, we drink alcohol. If we don't drink alcohol, we try and sleep around as much as possible because we are addressing the thing that we are feeling inside. Yeah. And we are numbing some of the things that we are supposed to be addressing. So no more numbing, let's address it. Speak out. In our communities, like you were saying with men, let's talk, gents. Let's talk. The reasons why men perish is because they don't have knowledge. That's scriptural even. So if people perish because of lack of knowledge, they will not perish if they have knowledge. Yeah. So make it knowledge, common knowledge to everyone, from kids all the way through to Abu Kokobet. That's what I think.
Thank you. That's very insightful. So what I'm taking out, you're saying that there needs to be awareness. Yeah. There needs to be education. Knowledge needs to be available to all so that you are able to know what is it that I'm dealing with. Yeah. And you've also pointed out, gentlemen, about June being Mental Health Awareness Month globally. And oftentimes, as we've also rightly so spoken about, that men do not speak. Men do not talk. It is often found so late that, in actual fact, the issue was a mental health issue. You find that some people have already taken their lives. You find that some devastating stuff has already been done, has happened purely because they did not have the opportunity to speak. You gentlemen, perhaps let's forget about the men out there in your own personal lives, because surely all of us, we go through some mental health challenges one way or the other. Can you tell me a bit more about your own personal experiences with mental health?
Sure. Interestingly, Pute, I was thinking about this before you asked the question, and I think that's something that we hardly ask ourselves. What am I really struggling with? One goes through seasons of greatness and one goes through seasons of the valley. I'll call them seasons of the valley. And in the seasons of the valley, I understand from my own perspective, when I lost my dad, it was one of the darkest eras of my life. I had suicidal thoughts. I had thoughts of, I'm not worthy. I had thoughts that maybe I should just, end everything around me. Not just suicidally, but in terms of even relationships. I just wanted nothing to do with life. And in that season, it was 2021, I realized that the more I keep quiet about this thing and don't tell people, the more it eats me up alive. I lost a lot of business. I lost a lot of, who I was as a person. Losing my dad affected me that much. I lost my own identity. Simply because I was trying to be strong, but I'm not strong. And hence, internally, I kind of internalized the pain too much to the point where I couldn't speak about it. But as soon as I started speaking about it, telling you guys how I'm feeling, telling my wife, telling my siblings and others, then I felt that wave kind of die down. Something that felt heavy started to become lighter. I'm not saying that I'm at a position that I'm 100 times better now, but I'm definitely better than I was.
Yeah.
And that season helped me to realize that we need to talk. We need to stop trying to being I'm strong. You know, my mom likes to say, I'm strong. You know, and I always thought, why is she saying that? But I got to understand that she's basically saying, stop trying to deal with things on your own.
Yeah.
Stop trying to be the strongest one in the room. Sometimes it's okay to be weak. You know, Mfundi Swetu always says, it's okay to cry. Yes, don't cry all the time because now you become burdensome. But it's okay to cry. Cry to a brother, cry to your wife. Tell people how you are really feeling so that you can deal with such things. So personally, 2021, 2022, bit of 2023 were the hardest years of my life. It was hectic. But we are better. We are better than where we were. Yeah.
The 2 points I'm taking from that, you're saying that one, the minute you started talking to us, the minute you started talking to the people around you about how the loss of your father made you feel, you started to feel better. Yeah. Secondly, you're saying that mom said, stop being Armstrong. If you're out there and you're trying to be an Armstrong, it does not help. It will not get you anywhere. But just find someone you can speak to.
Sure.
Lebo.
For me, I think it's quite tough because I don't know if misdiagnosis is the right word to use. Because sometimes we try to diagnose how we feel. And sometimes we get like self-convincing answers to say that, no, this is the best way to deal with this. You spoke about numbing the pain as men. I think at some point I found myself like trying to fit in with wrong people, thinking that whatever that I was going through mentally will just vanish. And I ended up like drinking alcohol and all that. But on a Sunday, I would be this holy man going to church. Sure. And then up until I came to a space, I think we called that structure a G12, where I was in the presence of men who were talking freely, which is something that I was not used to. And by me observing what these men were discussing openly about their lives, it actually opened up to me in my mind that, look, you can do better by listening to this man and starting to talk. And from that very moment, that's when I realized that you actually need men that will actually, or friends that will actually hold you accountable. Because the fact of the matter is that if you don't have people that holds you accountable, the issues of mental health will continue to impact your life either way. So talking, like Uputimvuzo is saying, it's one of the healing programs that I happen to find myself in, because from the moment when I met you, when I met some of you Putinhlanhla in that gathering, you kind of won my heart to say that this is a safe space for me to let out everything that I want to talk about. And then from that very moment, I think the burden has lessened on my shoulders. Sure. Not to say that there isn't stuff that I go through on my own. I do go through stuff, but it's not as bad as it used to be, because now I know the channels in which I can follow in order to try and lessen the burden of mental health in my life.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you're saying that, I think what I'm taking from that, you're saying that let us create platforms for people to talk.
Yeah.
The structure you're referring to, saying there was a group of men, they were talking freely about their lives, which then prompted you to speak. So meaning that you need to speak sometimes so that somebody else finds that comfort in that space to be able to express themselves.
Yeah, because when I put in the problem that we have is that as men, we die in silence.
Sure.
Simply because of that, I don't want to put in Vuzo to know what I'm going through, because Uputim Vuzo might think that I'm weak. That's one of the problems that we have. So the moment Uputim Vuzo knows what I'm going through, the only fear we have is that Uputim Vuzo will start to go all around talking about my problems. The structure that I was referring to, it shouldn't only be limited in the church structures. We have a lot of people that are going through mental issues in our communities who are not even part of the church. And those are the people that we need to win. Those are the people where we need to sell this idea that, look, as a man, you are meant to protect. As a man, you are supposed to talk freely. Because as a man, naturally you have the authority. So the moment you are able to talk freely about mental issues, it makes it easy even for those who are supposed to submit to us as men to learn from us. And if those who submit from us as men are able to listen to us or see that change in us, what more about our children?
Sure.
I hear you. So you are saying that as a man, I am strong. I am a provider. I am a man who's supposed to protect. But yet you also say that I have the fears that if I speak, if I talk about my issue, I will hear it next door.
Yes.
How then, if I throw this at you, Mvuzo, how then should I tackle a situation like this? Here I am. Yes, you're telling me that I need to speak up. But also at the same time, I don't know if this person I'm speaking to would create that safe space. I would not hear my story being spoken about next door. How do I determine the right people to speak to?
Well, maybe on a lighter note, because this sounds a little bit heavy. You know, on a lighter note, it's okay to test the waters of people around you.
Yeah.
Just tell them something, even if it's not true.
Yeah.
You know, last week, I was in Zimbabwe and I was in Mozambique and I was busy doing this and this and this. And then see if you hear about it. It's okay to do that. It's okay to go and try a G12 or a T12 and say, listen, gents, this is where I'm at. And see where that leads to. Because if you didn't take the leap of faith, you wouldn't be helped. You know, so it's okay to test. Test. I mean, in Majita must stop thinking because I can't talk to anyone. Test. Look at the people around you. Can I test this relationship? And see, I mean, my dad, before he passed, he said, make sure before you get married in Fanwam that you test your wife, you know, go and visit her unannounced. Go and see what she's like around her friends. Test the waters as a man, you know, test if this is a safe relationship or not. Because if you don't do that, the adverse is you'll stay in the same space if you don't talk. And you become worse and you become a danger to society because you are unstable. And that's one of the key things that's happening with us men. The many rapists, the many murderers, the many people, they couldn't test the waters with people who were close or supposedly close to them. And when they found that those people were not safe, they stopped there. You don't stop until you find the right friendship. You don't stop. You continue. You speak up. I told you something. Now I'm hearing it from these people. What's up? Because at Tinesngamatodo, we think it ends there. But no, you can talk about it to anyone that you feel close enough to talk about or to talk to this about, you know. So I personally feel test the waters. Try out different relationships. If you don't have friendships, we are open to say, come to us. We are life igniters. Come speak to the life igniters. We've got a coach here who can help with such things. We are all coaches, by the way, in our different fields. And we believe that we are able to address certain things better as men because we understand how load lifting it is. You know, so I personally feel test the waters. You know, try out. Even if you find what he's spoken about, you know that I can't trust this one. I'm moving on to the next one.
And it's very important to understand that you cannot just use any outlet. I'll just make an example. Like have you been to the public restrooms? You can't just use any. So you can hop from one to the next one up until you get the right one. So I think it's the same thing with the people. The more time you spend with people, the more you are able to tell that, I know this one.
It's a filthy one.
This one is a filthy one. And I cannot just let out things to them because the moment I do that, my affairs will be known all over. So I think it's a journey. And you need to be patient with yourself as well. Because sometimes some people are so good at acting that you might end up like having to discuss your issues with them simply because of how welcoming they are. But you need to be careful as well as to the people that you surround yourself with. Try to build that relationship maybe for a certain period of time before you can actually start like letting out actually what you're going through. Even with myself, I didn't just, on the same day that I was invited to the structure that I was talking about, I didn't just talk freely.
Yeah.
I was reading the room because that's the most important thing. You need to read the room.
Sure.
And even if in that set, I can tell you now, even in that setup, there were those people that I felt like, okay, this one I cannot talk to, but I can only talk to this one. Because at the end of the day, you are not going to talk to everyone. You are not going to talk to everyone. Sure. You just have to have that trusted outlet that you are able to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you build relationship.
You build the
You have a
relationship.
trusted outlet, but you cannot talk to everyone.
Yes.
And just to add to what you're both saying, discernment. You know, we have this term, it's a Christian term, but it's so needed in society. You need to be able to discern. You mentioned it in passing. We need to be able to discern that this is not the right outlet. As much as I've tried you, and you mentioned reading the room, I need to be able to discern that this person that seems so welcoming, they might not just be the right one for me. You know, it happens even in our friendship circles and in our families that you trust someone so much and then they go out and backstab you. So you need to be able to discern, okay, this one is actually this kind of person. The only way you can discern is by reading what is in the atmosphere. We call it, in the Christian circles, we call it being led by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And he is the only one who is able to tell you, hey, watch out for this guy.
Yeah.
This guy is not right for you.
Yeah.
And if you can't communicate with the Holy Spirit, the best person to speak to is your wife if you are married.
Yeah.
Because your wife is like the Holy Spirit. She's your helper.
Yeah.
That's what she's there for. So if you can't open up to anyone, open up to your wife. And I'm saying it to Amachita because we think, you know, they are there to help us. That's why they trouble us so much. Where are we going? What's happening in the next 10 years? They will ask you these questions because they have your best interests at heart.
Yeah.
So speak to your wife. If you can't speak to Amachita, naturally, the best person to speak to is your wife.
Yeah.
And she'll be able to guide you to say, I think, Baba, do this.
Yeah.
And she will pray for you. That's a nice thing about wives as well.
Yeah.
So those who are unmarried, get married so you can give someone to speak to, you know, about such things. So yeah, I think discernment and next best is your wife.
Yeah.
And just going back to, thank you for that, going back to the stigma part. I'm keen to hear your thoughts, guys, around culture. What role does culture play? Because sometimes you go into the villages, you go into certain places, there's a different view about what people are going through, and you find that at times that may actually be mental health. What's your take on culture and mental health?
Sure, potentially. I think, that one, it requires us to unlearn quite a number of things. We grew up in societies whereby, okay, I've never grown up having a father figure in my life, but I hardly saw a man cry growing up. To this day, if you go to our villages or rural towns where you come from, if you'd be seen crying, you'd be considered a weak man. So talking about culture, there's certain things that we need to unlearn, that as a young boy or as a young man, you don't have to cry. Those are some of the things that we need to unlearn, because crying, it's part of healing as well. I'm not saying we should go around crying. No. But there's those issues that requires you to actually be emotional and cry so that you can heal.
Sure.
And there's this thing that we need to unlearn as well, which is gender-based for me. That as a boy child, there's certain things that you must do.
Sure.
As a girl child, there's certain things that you must do. Those are some of the things that we need to unlearn, because we live in a very diverse communities, and we live with the woke people at the same time. There are many issues that we are tackling as a family, right?
Sure.
As the community. So we need to be woke and open to unlearning and learning new things.
Sure.
That takes us forward.
Yeah. And just to add, I think one of the things that I've learned as African men, you know, Auntie was speaking from our own culture as Africans. You know, one of the things that we learn as African men is that men only do this kind of thing. And if you do something else, and I'm not saying I'm advocating for anything else, but as Africans, we are taught to go according to a specific line and toe this particular line. But it may not work for the times that we are living in.
True.
You know, in the times that we are living in now, if you're going to say, I'm going to be a man that comes home, doesn't speak to anyone, I'm the lion. As soon as I sit down, I want the newspaper, I want food. And if you don't give me that, I start shouting, and the dogs and the cats and the rats, they all run away.
Yeah.
We cannot have that in this society. We cannot have that in this day and age. We need to be men that are adaptable to the times.
Yeah.
You know, I loved, there's this portion of men who were known in ancient times called the sons of Issachar. They understood the times. And if we are going to be a man that is going to change the cultural norms, you need to be able to understand the times. We are not living in the times of Amapubes anymore. We are living in the times of both the lamb and the lion. You need to be able to say, okay, now I must be a lamb. I must obey what needs to happen in the house. I need to obey what's happening in society. Like you were saying, being woke, that's being lamb. But when it comes to protection, then I'm a lion. It's a different phrase, different animal that comes out to protect, but not to hurt. Because I think that's where we miss it as men. Because I'm a lion all the time, I end up hurting people that don't need to be hurt. I end up causing more pain than I'm supposed to cause healing. You know, we know of a man who lived on earth, who was both the lion and the lamb. To those that he needed to be a lamb to, he was a balm of Gilead. But to those that he needed to shout at, he was the one who was saying, you bunch of vipers. Because you need to understand, there are certain people who are vipers and you need to deal with them. The ills in society, they need the lion. But our wives, our children,
they need a lamb.
They need a lamb. You know, so I think that's where we need to find a balance. The cultural aspect that taught us the lion, let's keep that part, but to protect. When we need the lamb, we understand, okay, every man in society, especially in African society, needs to be able to tap into the lamb aspect. And it's not weakness. I think that's the misunderstanding we get when I'm net. We misunderstand that being a lamb is not being weak. It's being meek. And there's a difference there. Meekness and weakness are two different things. You can be meek, but you can be the strongest man in the room. I'm just humble at that time. I'm quiet. I'm dealing with what needs to be dealt with. Not the loudest voice, but the soundest voice. I think that's where we need to learn as men, because you know, boom, 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 always attacking, and you end up attacking the wrong things. We can't be shagas all the time. We sometimes, and I'd like to hear your take as well, Put, on this one, because you are the expert on this one. Maybe you can help us on this one. How do we unlearn some of these cultural things from your perspective?
Well, not speaking from an expert perspective, but speaking from a position of, I think you've rightly pointed out that it's important to understand the times that we are living in. Because in the past, the challenges were that there were certain things, there were certain cultural norms where there are certain spaces that would not be allowed to. There's certain information that would not be shared with people. There's certain accesses that people would not have. But now in the times that we are in, people have access to knowledge. People have access to understanding. Because one of the biggest killers is not being aware of your surroundings, aware of what is it that may be troubling you that potentially would kill you. But now that we've got access to information and it's available to everyone, pretty much everyone's got a smartphone. Whereas in the past, you need to go and queue at a supermarket to call or to even get access to information. Internet, exactly. Internet, you know, you would go to internet cafes, you've got to pay 5 rands for an hour and all that to get information, but information is now available. So therefore, now that the times have changed, it is important to also understand what was relevant back then to where we are now, how irrelevant it is, and we adapt and adjust accordingly.
That's so good. That's so good. And thank you for that answer. You know, we often don't get that perspective. And I'm glad we are speaking. As much as you say you're not an expert, but you are the expert in the room. You know, we understand. And you wrote such an excellent book, by the way, as we give you, you know, your the pedigree that you deserve. You know, you spoke well in your book. And we are learning so much as African men. And we are now able to be conversant about such things.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's eye-opening for myself as well, because I could relate to quite a number of things that you mentioned there. And in my mind, I went like, oh, this is a mental issue, you know.
Yeah.
And thanks for that for that book. Like it's doing something in my life, to be honest. And
Exactly.
I'm now aware of the certain issues that maybe I could teach the next generation within my space. And I do wish that people get that book, man. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. And as we progress the conversation heading towards a close, you spoke earlier about schools. We're seeing quite a lot of schools. There's lots of fighting amongst learners. There's lots of bullying. There's lots of children that are taking their lives. And we don't really see a lot of action from government, from SGBs and so forth. What should we be doing as a society? What is our role? Because this is not only, yes, I talk about SGPs, yes, I talk about schools, yes, I talk about government, but this is a matter of national interest that every single one of us needs to play a role. What should we be doing as well to help in schools and really curb this challenge?
I don't know, Poti. I consider ourselves as activists from now on, because we have identified where the problem is. And now the awareness should go to the communities. And for us to get it right, I'll go back to what we've spoken about with regards to the awareness programs that were ran during the darkest days of HIV and AIDS. I was very young, but I was taught about how to use a condom. Yeah, despite being sexually active at the time. And what I feel like it should happen, the same programs and the same effort that was put in order to make sure that people learn about this pandemic, people learn about the safety measures, primary safety measures that needs to be taken in order for one not to be infected. It's the same thing that we need to do. And these things, they go as far as taking the teachers to the when we were young, you'd go to school and then they would tell you that educators are not around. They went to do some coursework somewhere where they are taught about these things, so that when they come, they teach us. So those are some of the things that should be implemented. And we can, at this point, I wouldn't say that let's let the government decide for us what to do. But we as the community, we need to take a step in order to protect our communities by equipping our educators to be able to detect the early signs of this, on how to detect the early signs of this mental health issues. At the same time, children or learners should be taught as to when you have emotions like this, when you are bullied at school, whenever you are stressed or you are depressed, this is where this leads to. And if this is not attended at an early stage, this is where it's going to escalate to. This is where you need to have counselors, life coaches, being recognized and being given the platform, even in schools, to come and help in order to reduce the stigma around these issues.
And being paid as well.
And being paid, of course, being paid as well.
And then, so what I'm picking up from you, you're saying that the teachers needs to be equipped.
Yes.
Learners need to be spoken to.
Yes.
Create that awareness that when you start experiencing such emotions, you need to be aware who you need to speak to and so forth. And there needs to be counselors readily available in schools that whether be it government, be it private businesses that avail these to schools. And just taking the conversation further from schools, Mnethu, earlier you spoke about employers, you spoke about psychologists in the workplaces. Employers are reporting that they're seeing a decline in productivity at work as a result of mental health issues as well. What should employers be doing to help employees? Because there's a lot of this. Sometimes there's even a lot of disputes between employer and employees, and find that the root cause is actually mental health. What should employers do to help their staff?
Well, I'll answer it threefold. I think first and foremost, employers need to know what mental health issues there are. Because if employers don't know what they're dealing with, they're just going to blindly look for a solution. So let's equip the employer.
Okay.
And by the way, Life Igniters can do that for you. Just as an audience, I'm just putting it out there. Also, Coach NX can do that for you so that you are aware that we are multifaceted. So equip the employer. Make the employer aware that there's an issue like this. The decline that they are seeing in the productivity is as a result of this. So you set out programs that will deal firstly with the employer, equip him or her, make them aware that this is how you can deal with this. Then only you are able to deal with the employee issue. Yeah. Because if the employer thinks they must just see how they deal with it, then by all means, the decline is going to continue. And you're going to end up having 0% productivity because everyone is depressed. Everyone is sad. Everyone is anxious. They get to work. They've just seen a violent crime. They don't know how to react to that. So give the employer solutions on how to deal with that. Then the employer must be able to bring those solutions to the employee. To say that, listen, I mean, we have safety videos at work. Safety videos where you can see this is how you wear your PPE, this is how you deal with this. The same way we give our employees information, give them information about mental health. Like, listen, the reason why you are feeling depressed or why your productivity is so low is because you have not dealt with these particular issues. Then those videos or those pamphlets or whatever, I know that as Africans, we don't like to read that much. But if it's a video, if it's something that I can download and watch and rewatch and learn and unlearn and relearn, then it's going to help me as an employee because my employer knows what's going on with me. And then I want to take it also to the house. You cannot be an employee and not know that this thing can affect your children. So once I've learned as an employee, as a parent, I need to be able to take this thing home and say, my children, how are you feeling? Mentally, where are you at? What's troubling you? What's not troubling you? Because now I know that there's something wrong with me. My employer helped me. Now I am able to help someone else at home. Because we always say charity starts at home. I can't go out there and deal with other people's children if my children are not okay. I need to be able to tell, even if I don't have children, come here, small girls, small boys, let me tell you about mental health. In our communities, we used to have people who used to do that for us. We used to call it the birds and the bees talks, where they would tell us about umjolo and whatnot, that these are the dangers, these are the pitfalls, these are the benefits, and wait for this particular time in order to do this kind of thing. We need to have that as the people now who are mature enough to do that. And once we equip, I deal with young people all the time. If I equip a young person, that young person is going to equip someone else. Because we can't say everything is negative. There are some positive things that are happening. That's why we have SGBs that help students help other students. We have SCOs in our universities and other student organizations that help positively. So I think as we learn from employer, employee who goes home, teaches his own or her own children, all the way to the community, that's how we can address this issue. But starting first with the employer, because the employer, this is now for the government and for private or private-owned companies. They need to be able, as people who are responsible, to be able to take that step to say, I want to make sure my employees are okay. And my employees must teach their kids so that our schools are okay. Because the schools are the issue. They go rotten there at school and we expect them to be good employees. They're going to be rotten there and rotten at work. They're going to influence people to do the wrong thing. So you deal all the way top down and down to the top. That's the only way that I see us dealing with this particular thing at work and in our schools.
Thank you. So, in actual fact, you're saying that employers need to care enough and see employees as human beings before they are seen as resources to do the work. There needs to be programs that demonstrates the level of care, which will then help as the employees become equipped. You're saying that will have a ripple effect into the family as well.
That's so good, but yeah.
As a parting shot, we've pretty much towards at the end of our conversation. I'll start with you, Lebo. There's somebody out there who's about to let it all go down, who's about to end it all, saying, I am tired. This has been too much on me. The weight of responsibility expectations. Everyone around me is expecting me to be strong. Everyone around me expects me to win, to come out a champion against all these challenges that I'm facing. Somebody is listening to you now. In a minute, what do you say to that person? How do you give them hope and say you can conquer?
All I would say is that you are not alone. The pain is temporary. This chapter of your life, you can go through it. And that there's more interesting chapters in your life that will be life-changing. And that your life is valuable. And I'm pleading with that individual to say that, please stay. Stay. Because someone needs you out there. And if maybe there is some form of help that you need, we have South African Depression and Anxiety Group that can be able to assist. We also have Life Igniters that can assist, and other ministries, church ministries that are able to assist in that regard. But your life is more valuable than any other thing.
Sure. That's good.
Was your parting shot?
Sure. Geez, man. I would say to someone who's about to end it all, don't. Stop right where you are. And the reason I'm saying this is because I have an understanding of this. I went through the same thing. And I want to say to someone who's thinking, this is it. It's not it. And it won't get you anywhere. Instead, it will leave more pain to those you will leave behind. So rather, deal with the issues that are there. We can't be cowardly about this thing. And ending it is a cowardly thing. I got to understand that as an individual, that it's very cowardly to end your own life. It's dealing with things as a coward. And in this particular instance, you can't be a coward. You need to be able to face it, talk to someone. Come see us at Life Igniters, like Lebo said. Speak about the things that are troubling you. Journal them down if need be. Because the more you outlet it, the more you will feel better. And the better you feel, the better your surroundings will feel. And the more your surroundings improve, our nations improve. And I want to say to you that there is someone watching your life who is thinking, I wish I had what you had. So never feel your situation is so bad that you are the only one going through that. There's someone looking at you and saying, I wish I had those torn flip-flops because all I have is my bare feet. There's someone who's saying, I wish I had that shirt because all they have is a torn shirt. There's someone who's saying, I wish I had the wife that you are complaining about because I don't have anything in this life. Don't ever think your situation is worse than anyone else's. Speak about it, deal with it, improve the surroundings around you, and your health will improve.
Yeah.
You'll start seeing joy in things again. You'll start experiencing your surroundings better, making South Africa a great nation again because you made a decision to speak out and to deal with it. Don't be a coward. Deal with it. That's what I'd say.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I think from my side, it's just to emphasize that mental health is indeed a pandemic. In actual fact, it's an enemy that is invisible, that needs to be conquered. But you cannot conquer what you cannot see. So first, it's important that be aware of what you are going through. Be aware of your challenges. And when you are aware of your challenges, then you know how to deal with them. Also important as well, because oftentimes mental health issues are caused by living for tomorrow. Enjoy today and plan for tomorrow, but don't live in tomorrow today, because that's what leads to challenges. Be content with where you are, with what you have, whilst you're planning for the future that you want to have. But equally so, it's also important to be grateful. Have gratitude for the moment and the things that you have at this particular time. Not only that, express yourself. We've spoken enough that have an outlet. Speak to somebody. I often say that imagine that if you don't have an outlet, you keep on eating and eating and there's nowhere else to have an outlet. That in itself will kill you. You are an overcomer. You can win this. You are more than a conqueror. Conquer this invisible enemy. I would also like to thank you, gentlemen, for your time. And most important, would also like to thank Manx Media for providing the platform for us to have this conversation. So these gentlemen, you can also book them for all your events. They are available at a reasonable price. Just book their studios, book them for all other recording events, and then gladly assist you. Thank you, Mvuzo. Appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you, Lebo, for your time. Really appreciate you. And these guys, you can find them on social media platforms, available on Facebook, available on Instagram. And together, we are Life Igniters. Mental health is really a challenge. It is a pandemic. It's something that you need to tackle. It is an invisible enemy that needs to be conquered. Remember that you need to be aware of it. You cannot deal with something that you're not aware of. Speak to somebody. Employers, organizations, schools, university, make this a priority because this is a global thing that is affecting the entire universe. We're no longer talking about COVID now. We are talking about mental health. Follow us on all social media platforms. I am also available online. Coach NX. Can find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, find me on www.coachnx.com. You can also find us on www.lifeigniters.com. Till next time, see you on the next episode.
Yes.